Hi, welcome to APCA Malaysia. My name is Chef Sean, and today in this video, I'll be showing you a scallop dish, which is great for a first course on your anytime if you want to have to impress your family or friends or loved ones, or you can even insert it into your tasting menu. And so we will begin with a rundown of the ingredients. Here we have some fennel, which is already chopped up, some whole basil leaves, and a little bit of mashed potato for the puree, just for a thickening process. So we'll be making a fennel and basil puree. And then for the next component, we have here some baby onions, cipollini onions, and then as well as petals of fennel, which we have cut into a tear shape just for more of a design. And we also have some thyme leaves and some fennel seeds and cumin seeds. So this one we'll be doing a confit. And then next, here we have some orange segments, which we have cut to a supreme cut. And it's basically marinating here with some white wine, orange juice, as well as fennel and cumin seed. So this will have a more flavor profile, so a little bit of freshness to your dish. And then here we have some chopped onions and red chili and some chives chopped fine, so that this will be also for added color and freshness. And then for some texture, we have here quinoa. It's a mixed quinoa, 3-color quinoa. So this will be also an added texture to your scallop dish. And finally, last but not least, the most important thing of this, important ingredient of this dish is the scallops, of course. Okay, so we'll be beginning by making the confit as well as the puree. And then from there, we will move on to the sauce, and finally, we will cook the quinoa. So we will move on to the stove, and we shall begin from there. So first we'll begin with the confit of the fennel and the cipollini onions. So here we have olive oil, which is on a very low fire. So the thing you need to know is we need to bring it to 60 degrees Celsius and lower down the heat, and we shall slowly cook it down until it is nice, tender and soft, and of course infused all the flavor of your thyme as well as your cumin and fennel seed. So from here, before we add in the fennel and the onions, we will begin by infusing flavor into this oil with your remaining ingredients, which is the thyme and the fennel and cumin seeds. Let this stand for 20 minutes until the flavor infuses, just to give it a chance for the flavor to infuse. Once the flavor is infused, you can smell the aroma from the oil. We shall add in your ingredients to confit. After a certain amount of time, it should start boiling like this. And then when it starts boiling, you can finally just transfer it to the bag and then lower it down to a medium heat and just let it simmer. You do not want to boil it like this, as you want to infuse the stock flavor into your fennel. And if you boil it too hard with a high heat, it will cook, but the flavor won't be as good, and it might also discolor your fennel. Okay, so I'm going to remove this to the bag and then lower on a lower heat and let it simmer until it is soft. Now that your ingredients are cooking, your other components, so now we'll move on to the scallop. So important thing for you to note that scallops have an abductor muscle here, which from the side, which you have to remove. Okay, just like that. One more. It's all very obvious that it's on the side. You can see just like that. Remove it. Okay, we'll proceed with all the muscle, the scallops. Okay, so we are going to pan sear these scallops at a very high heat. So the important steps you have to know is that you need it to be very dry. So I have here prepared a tray with a cloth. You can use a paper towel, no problem. Okay, so what you do, just put it on, transfer it over like that. Then now you just lightly press on Do not press too rough. Okay, do not apply too much pressure until it is dry like that, and then now we will season. So for this one, I will be using slightly rougher crushed black pepper. Okay, so because when you sear, it is going to form a crust. Okay, so just go season evenly, just like that. And then with the salt, so we'll be using again the salt flakes here. The salt flakes again will create the crust on the scallop. Not only will it give it a crust, it will also give it a very nice golden brown color. Okay, just like that, not too much, as the scallops are naturally a little bit briny in taste. Okay, so once that is done, flip it over, another light seasoning. Please keep in mind that if your sauce will be heavily seasoned or heavily flavored, try not to season too heavily as well here. So just a light seasoning will do. After 15 minutes or 10 to 15 minutes depending on the size of your ingredient here, so you can see that it's confit with the oil. It should be tender, still holding its shape, as you can see here, but not breaking apart. Okay, so this is a very nice flavorful component which you can use for many of your dishes. You can change the flavor profile as you see fit. And you do not have to use the spices here. You do not have to use the thyme. You can change up the herbs. You can also put some citrus like lemon zest or orange zest. It's totally up to your creativity. Okay, so this is just a very simple one with a thyme and some spice. Okay, so now what you have to do, just get a spoon. If you have a slotted spoon, that will work great. Just remove onto another paper towel, a separate one, just to remove any excess oil. Okay, and this will be ready for plating and serving. So with the oil, you can reserve and reuse it for any confit recipes that you want, which I will put this aside now. So now we have our confit fennel and onions. Okay, so now after about 8 to 10 minutes with your thinly sliced fennel like this, or you can check like this with your paring knife, or if you have a fork in hand, it works just fine. Okay, just like that. As you can see, it's slide down. So how to check that it's nice and well cooked, just soft, just enough for you to make a puree. You can see that it slides down very easily. So now we will move on to a strainer. We will strain it out. We will also reserve some of the liquid. Just like this. And this liquid, we will use a little bit for the blending process. Okay, once you have strained out the fennel, leave it one side. Okay, now you have your basil leaves. In the same liquid, we pour it out into another pan, or you can do it together. I just prefer to do it separately. So what you're looking for is not to fully cook this basil. All you're doing is blanching it so that the color becomes a darker green. So when you blend it together with your fennel, you have a very nice and vibrant color, as well as a very fresh basil flavor. So once the water is boiling, okay, for blanching method, you have to make sure it's boiling. Okay, so now that it's boiling, I'm going to add all the basil in this and just give it a good stir. If you have to, just get a wooden spoon, make sure everything is blanching evenly like this. Just give it about 15 seconds to 20 seconds and you should be ready to remove. Okay, as you can see from the dull color that you had just now, after a quick blanching process, it's a very dark and bright green. Okay, so now we will strain it once again like this. Now we can put it together with the fennel and we can move on to the blender. Okay, now here we have the ingredients for blending. You have your basil leaves, also the cooked fennel, and then now you have some potato puree here, which is used for the thickening, and then as well as some reserve liquid. You don't need to use so much, it's just to help with the blending process in the blender. Okay, so now we will add in this liquid. Do not add in all at the start, you can just add in half first. Add in some potato, and then now you can add in all your remaining ingredients. If you're blending something hot, please be careful. You can use a thick cloth like this one, cover the top of the lid, and then you can start with a pulse motion. Okay, do not go high speed all the way, it will explode. Okay, so go higher. After blending for 30 seconds, okay, now you check your puree with a spoon, make sure it's dry, and then you just have a look at your puree. It should look, if it looks like this, you can add a little bit more potato as you need more body to make it stand. Okay, so that's what I will be doing. I'll add just a little bit more of the potato just for the thickening. So a little bit more stock. Okay, and continue the blending process. Okay, now for a second check, you can see that it's holding up nicely like this, and this is what you want in a puree, which is great. As you can see, the vibrant color here will show in your dish, and it's as simple as that to make a very flavorful puree as well. And check for seasoning. If you need to add more seasoning, now is the time. Add some salt, some pepper, and then you go on and blend maybe for 2 to 3 seconds, just so that the seasoning blends through. Okay, so now transfer it back into a saucepan or pot. Okay, your puree. As it is still hot, there's one tip that I can give you. If you have some cold butter, you can put it in before serving and whisk it in. It will emulsify and create an even richer puree. That if your recipe requires something that's much richer, you can do that. Okay, so now I will put it here towards the back so that it's for holding purposes, and before serving we'll reheat it again. It's not necessary that you have to do it, but it is best to be served hot. Okay, so now we will move on to the sauce. Okay, so now as you can see here, after reducing by almost 3/4, it's now a thick consistency. Okay, so now I'll be adding in the cream. Okay, this is some cooking cream here. Okay, so now you add it in. Okay. If you're not sure, or if you're not going to measure this, because sometimes as a chef we do not measure in culinary, so what you can do is have the cream ready and also have some fish stock in hand, and then you can adjust the consistency to your liking. Not a problem. Okay. All that matters now is this is very full flavored, very well flavored with the fish stock, with the wine, and also now with the addition of cream, it will be a very rich, flavorful sauce. Okay, so now just cook the cream through. Just a 2-3 minute process will do, you know, at a medium heat. Do not over cook this cream, as it will burn around the sides and it will discolor your sauce, and you do not want that for your presentation. Okay, so now that is done, we will season it at the end. Okay, so now we will finish with the quick cooking of the quinoa. Okay, cooking quinoa is very simple. So because this dish is a seafood dish, we'll be using a fish stock. You can just use normal water. Okay, all you need to do is boil it for 1 minute with a little bit of seasoning, and the quinoa is done. So we are going to keep it very natural tasting, letting the quinoa have its own flavor, as well as to infuse it with a little bit of fish stock. So very simple, and also to maintain the integrity of the quinoa. Okay, some salt, some pepper. When 1 minute is up, you can switch off the fire and strain it out. Okay. Now we move on to, finally, always the last is a pan searing of your scallops. So you can use a non-stick pan, but I do prefer that we use a stainless steel pan. This will ensure you a better color, a better crust as well. So we will be preheating this pan now before we add in the scallops. So a little bit of oil will do. Any cooking oil is fine. Do not use olive oil, as the high smoking point will cause the oil to burn, and then one is carcinogenic, which is cancerous, and secondly, it will ruin the flavor of your whole dish. So some olive oil, just a thin layer of oil at the bottom, and then wait for it to really smoke up a little bit. Okay, and then add in your scallops one by one. We'll be adding the scallops in a clockwise, or if you prefer anti-clockwise, you can, so that we can flip it in a very organized way, so that we do not flip the other more than the second or the third one, because scallop cooking is a bit sensitive, as you don't want to overcook. We'll be cooking this to a very medium to medium rare doneness. Okay, so once your pan has reached the heat, you lower it down to a medium high. You don't need it at high all the time, as you only need it to reach that temperature. So once it reaches that temperature, you can lower down the temperature, lower down the fire, sorry, and then now you can add in your scallops. So I only use my hand. Okay, you can just put it around like this. So it should sizzle just like that. Almost immediately you can smell the smell of scallop searing, so you know you're doing the right thing. So have a plate ready for you to put your scallops down after it's cooking. So maybe one side you take around, for a scallop like this size, one side for 1 to 2 minutes is just fine. Okay, so now that it's been searing for almost 40 seconds, we'll start with the one we put down first. So you can see here the crust is formed. Okay, just flip it over like this, and you can see the crust forming because of your salt, pepper, as well as the natural sugars from the scallop. So another 30 seconds maybe for this size, because it's really small. If you have bigger ones, you have to adjust the cooking time. So if you want to know the size of this scallop, it will be a 40 by 50, okay, which means in a kilo or a pound, you get 40 to 50 numbers of scallop. Okay, so now I will maybe remove the small ones first. Okay, with your spoon, simply just remove the small ones first, and then with the size that is the same like this one here, we will slow it down. Okay, so about there. Okay, so both sides will be nice and caramelized and form the crust. So now we will remove it onto a pre-prepared cloth or paper towel, just to dab out any extra moisture that will come out from the scallops, like this. And we are ready for the final step, which is the plating. Okay, now when it's almost time to serve, I will reheat the puree. Do not reheat it too long, as it will dull the color and it might turn brown. Just like this is enough. You do not need a very hot steaming puree. Once that is done, in a bag like this, okay, just a jar at the bottom to hold the piping bag, because we will be transferring this into a squeeze bottle. So just pour it in slowly. Try not to spill anything. Okay, now that we have it there, we will snip off the tip and then transfer it into a squeeze bottle. Just like this, put the tip in and press it down. Okay, now you have all your puree in a squeeze bottle, no spillage, no fuss. Okay, so one thing to note, that if you have a hot mixture or any ingredient in a squeeze bottle like this, do not shake it, as the pressure will cause it to splash. Okay, so be careful with this. Okay, now that is done, we will move on to the last, which is the sauce. As you can see, if you leave it, it will form a crust. So no problem, we can fix this. All you have to do is turn up the heat and then stir it down. So we did mention that we will be seasoning it now, as it's not seasoned at all yet. Okay, so we will season it just slightly. You do not need much seasoning when the sauce is so flavorful like this, because you want to let the natural flavors be the taste that your diner experience. Okay, so if it's a little too thick like this, we will be adding a little bit of fish stock, and then we will strain it out. So we will remove any of the clumps here, and it should be ready to go. So a little bit of fish sauce, which we reserved from earlier. Fish stock, sorry. Pour it in, not too much, just a little bit. Okay, so don't worry if your sauce ever over thickens or over reduce. You can get some fish stock, add some in, and you are back to a very good consistency. From there, we will strain this into another pot, and then we can start with the plating process. So I have here a strainer and another pot, so I'll just hold it down and then strain it over. Okay, just like that. You end up with a very creamy and velvety sauce without any clumps or... Okay, so you have this sauce here. So now we will be continuing with the plating process, but before that, I just want to show you this. I have here a nice homemade orange oil. Okay, so if you want to know how to make it, please drop us a comment. Okay, and then we can make a video solely just to teach you how to make oils or any garnishes that you want to learn. We will try to put that up in our YouTube page. Okay, so now, because this sauce is very rich and very creamy, we will be putting some orange oil, which will help with the freshness and also give it a different aroma and a different depth of flavor. Okay, so all you need to do is just pour a nice amount in. Okay, as you can see here. Not only that, it's going to also give it a very good presentation with the white and the yellow, very nice contrast in colors. So do not stir it first. We will only stir it once we are going to spoon it on. Okay, so now we will move on to plating. Okay, so now when it comes to plating, I always tell people or tell myself that you just go with what you feel like doing, and it most probably 80% of the time will look nice. If it doesn't look nice, you can try again. Okay, we have a ring mold here. So sometimes when you want to do something that is more even, or a shape that you want to do, so we have a ring mold like this. Then finally, always try and go with the heavy ingredients first. If it is not, then end with the lighter ingredients. So our heavy ingredients are like a puree here. So we'll start with the puree. You just bring a little bit down. Okay, just pipe it down and then bring it forward, just like that. Okay, try to space it out a little bit here and there. Okay, as you can see, it's a very nice color. Okay, once you've done with that, we have the orange segments like here. Okay, these have been marinated as we mentioned before in white wine, okay, and fennel seeds. So we won't be using all. We have a few here, maybe 3 will do, and I have a good feeling that we should cut it in half, just like this. Okay, so sometimes you just go with what you feel like doing. Okay, I'll cut it in half. Okay, so one thing also to always have a dry paper towel here to clean up any of the wet ingredients here, so that it doesn't end up on your plate. Okay, so because it's a very contrasting color, we will add it in slowly. Okay, just like that. And then maybe 1 or 2 by its own. Okay, and then finally you have your fennel tears here. You can just put it around, okay, anywhere. Try to give it some height, as that will be a very good advantage for your dish. It's always good to have your height on your dish. Okay, but try not to let it lean on the ring mold, because we'll be, of course, removing this. Okay, so try and lean it on the orange or the puree, and then a little couple of onions here and there. Okay, try to speed up the plating process and plan it out before you plate it, so that you do not waste too much time plating and the food will go cold. Okay, which is defeats the purpose of cooking itself. Okay, so now with your scallops, we'll put it one here. Okay, we won't be using all. Then one more here. So now it's a process of basically covering up the holes that we have made here. So we'll put some quinoa around, just like that. Okay, just spoon it down. Try not to cover anything. Okay, as natural as possible. Just like that. Okay, we're not going to use all. And then finally, we have also some salsa here. Okay, just to give it a little bit more flavor, freshness. Okay, not a lot, just a little bit here and there, just to give it another profile of flavor. Okay, just like that. Okay, and now all you need to do is with the sauce, like before, spoon it 1 or 2 times, and then just drop it down in the middle. Okay, sometimes you have to eye it. Okay, so just like that. It should give you a very good design. And then now, very slowly and carefully, remove your ring mold, and everything should fall into place. Okay, so finally, we have some herbs here. Okay, some micro coriander. Okay, so try to put it in where you see the most suitable. Okay, if it's too big, try not to use it. Accidents do happen, so do not worry about that. You can always remove it. Okay, so the difficult thing now is to learn when to stop, because sometimes as you're doing it you enjoy yourself too much and then you forget when to stop. Okay, so that happens to everyone, no worries. So a final wipe of your plate, try and get out any of things that you see that does not belong. Okay, so this is the final product right here. Okay, so this is a scallop, pan-seared scallop with a white wine reduction sauce with orange oil, and then also we have a few condiments that will go very well with the dish. Okay, like fennel and orange, as well as fennel and basil puree. So you have a very flavorful dish that doesn't flavors that don't clash. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this recipe. We'll be seeing each other again. So if you have any requests or comments or questions, please drop it down on the comment section below. Please like and subscribe. Thank you very much.